Hello. Another thing that we often see with our client interviews, especially in MSI 342, are sort of what I like to call the unspoken user stories. So these are situations where you have these interviews, the client has just expects software to always do certain things. You, as the software developing team, you probably even have expectations and stuff as well. And these often end up as being unspoken, but in particular, because the client doesn't say it, you don't take notes about it, and then you work from your notes, you develop stories, and there are gaps in functionality missing. And some of the really big ones that'll show up, and hopefully you can uncover some of them as you go and you build a user story map and you start working on the design. But there are other ones that you actually need to make a concerted effort to think about and really think about. Probably they need to be added already into your existing set of stories. So, again, basics, log in, log out, all those sorts of things. You would probably uncover that hopefully as you work on the user story map and the design, but you might not already have it there. If not, maybe you need to go ahead and start adding those things in. The really big one that seems to be always missing is the client is going to expect a way to install the software. There needs to be some way to hand off the software that you have developed for them so that they can continue to use it after the course is over. All right? They're they're not part of this course. They are outside of the course, and they really don't want their software. They've invested this time talking to you. They want it to actually work for them when you're long and gone and moved on. So you need to deal with that. Likewise, we often are missing documentation, either about how things work. Often, definitely, students often forget that they need documentation about how to install and hand off things. But even within the application itself, students forget that maybe help pages are necessary. Maybe there's more details necessary on how to actually use the software other than just what they put into it. And often unspoken are, oh, okay, great, you built me this, and then eventually, okay, so how can I get the data out of the system now? And that's not something that was the first idea that came up in a client interview. Oh, I want you to build the system so that I can get the data out of it. It only occurs to people often near the end when they realize, oh, I've put all this data into the system. You've given me this functionality around the data. I'm going to say goodbye to you, but what if I want to do more with the data than the functionality you already given it? So I want to get it out so I can go put it in another system. How am I going to do that? So some clients really need some sort of export. Some applications don't, but definitely some do. Same thing goes. Is there anything to be considered about how do you back up the system? How would you recover from a disaster? Restart the system, reset it if necessary. Maybe resetting is just a fresh install. Who knows? But some of these things clients really care about, but they're not set up front. What's the security requirements of the system? We've sort of talked about some of these and some of these extra questions we told you to ask at the interview. But also, likewise, privacy rights of users. How are we going to protect the privacy of users? What is the client's expectation, or have they considered it and thought about it? Likewise, when you build and design the system, you have a responsibility as an engineer to be thinking about things such as the equity of the people using it. So are people treated equally? Do they have equal access to it? Inclusivity and diversity as well. These sort of things about the user population. Are you taking that into consideration in your design? Certainly, unfortunately, a lot of systems lack consideration about people with disabilities. Okay, so people who have difficulty with eyesight, with hearing, and other sorts of things. And these applications don't actually work very well for them with the various tools that they need for ease of access. So the accessibility of those systems are not anywhere near as good. And you sort of have a responsibility to take these things into consideration as you design the software. We're not going to come after you in MSI 342 for not absolutely dealing and building a system for all possible scenarios, but they are things that you should be thinking about. And just be a heads up that often customers may forget to talk about these, but you have a responsibility as an engineer to be considering about them in the design of the system. You don't actually want to build systems that don't protect the rights of users, that don't consider different types of people who are going to be using the system, okay? You want to have those be part of the design, and to be aware and really focus on that. So remember, there's some things that could be missing. If you see things like this and you go, oh, we haven't even had a story about that yet, you're going to need to add it in if you think it's important for your product. If in doubt, talk with your customer. All right.